If you've asked your child to clean up more than twice today, here's the actual problem. The space doesn't feel like theirs. Not because they're lazy, not because they're testing you, not because they lack discipline or because you've somehow failed as a parent. The reason is structural, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Children, like adults, do not naturally maintain what they don't own. And in most Western households, children don't own their space. Parents do. Parents decide where things go. Parents notice when it's messy. Parents are the ones who feel bothered when it isn't cleaned. The child is, functionally, a tenant in a space managed by someone else, and tenants, without exception, have a fundamentally different relationship with upkeep than owners do. The cycle this produces is exhausting and familiar. You ask, they ignore, you repeat, they resist, you enforce, they comply minimally. You enforce again tomorrow. The room is never quite clean, and both of you are tired of the conversation. What's not obvious is that this cycle is not a discipline problem, it's an ownership problem. And Japan has been solving it differently, quietly, effectively, for generations. The Japanese approach doesn't start with rules. It starts with a question that almost no Western parent thinks to ask. Does this child actually have something to take care of? Starting around age 3, sometimes earlier, Japanese parents give their children a specific, bounded space that belongs entirely to them. Not a full room necessarily. Japanese homes are typically small, and the practice adapts to whatever space is available. It might be a shelf, a single drawer, a low cabinet in the corner of the living room, a dedicated section of a shared bedroom with clear physical demarcation. The size doesn't matter much. What matters is the completeness of the handover. The parent does not arrange the space, does not comment on its condition, does not tidy it when it becomes chaotic, does not suggest how things should be stored or organized. When it descends into disorder, and it always does, quickly, there is only one person responsible for putting it right: the child. No nagging, no reminder system, no sticker chart for keeping it tidy. The expectation is communicated once, clearly, in whatever terms the child can understand at their age. This is your space. You are responsible for it. Then it becomes background, the way any real responsibility becomes background, not a recurring discussion, just the permanent shape of how things are. This is called mimamoru in Japanese parenting philosophy. It translates roughly as to watch over while stepping back, the deliberate practice of giving a child responsibility and then trusting them with it, resisting the impulse to intervene, correct, or take over. It is the opposite of helicopter parenting, and its effects are radically different. What happens over the first few weeks is not dramatic, and parents expecting a sudden transformation will be disappointed. The child continues being a child. The space gets messy. Possibly messier than before, because now no one is automatically tidying it. But something quieter is happening underneath the visible chaos. The child's relationship with that space is changing. Ownership produces something that obligations simply cannot: investment. The child begins to notice the state of the space in a new way, not because they've been told to notice it, but because it's theirs. Things they care about are in it. When it becomes impossible to find something, the beloved toy, the specific drawing, the collection they've been building, they experience that frustration directly, personally, without it being mediated through parental disappointment or psych. When it's organized and they can find everything easily, they experience that too, directly, as something they created. The feedback loop becomes real and personal rather than external, internal, imposed. Psychologists who study environmental psychology call this phenomenon place attachment, the degree to which a person experiences a physical space as an extension of their sense of self. A related concept in developmental psychology is ownership identity, the way humans assign different levels of care and attention to things they own versus things they merely use. Children who are given genuine, unmanaged ownership of a space at a formative age develop what researchers call environmental self-efficacy, the felt sense that they are capable of maintaining their environment, that their actions in the space produce real outcomes, that the space responds to their choices. This is different in kind from the child who learns to clean up when asked. The externally compliant child has learned that cleaning produces parental approval or avoids parental disappointment. The internally motivated child has learned something more durable, that order in their space produces a concrete personal benefit, that they are the author of their environment, that the condition of the space reflects their choices and belongs to them. This principle extends beyond the child's personal space, and this is where the Japanese approach becomes particularly interesting. Japan has the practice of soji, daily classroom cleaning, in which every student participates in cleaning the school building each day before going home. There are no janitors at most Japanese schools. The students sweep, mop, wipe desks, clean bathrooms, and maintain the corridors, divided into rotating assignments. This is not presented as punishment or as an onerous duty. It is presented as part of what it means to be a member of the school community. The underlying principle is identical to the home practice. You take care of what you belong to and what belongs to you. The school isn't owned by abstract authorities. It is, in a practical and experiential sense, owned by the people who inhabit it and maintain it. The student who cleans the bathroom is more likely to keep it clean throughout the day, not because of fear of consequences, but because of ownership, because it is theirs. Research on the school soji practice has shown measurable differences in how Japanese students relate to their school environment compared to students in schools without shared cleaning responsibilities. Lower rates of vandalism, greater care for shared equipment, a significantly different attitude toward the communal space. What soji creates is not rule following. It is stakeholder identity, the psychological experience of being a co-owner of the environment rather than a user of it. There's a developmental psychology framework that helps explain why this works. Self-determination theory, developed by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan over decades of research, identifies 3 core psychological needs that drive intrinsic motivation: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Why discrimination berkunes. Autonomy, the experience of being the author of one's own actions. Competence, the experience of being capable and effective. Relatedness, the experience of connection and belonging. The Japanese ownership approach hits all 3 simultaneously. The child who has genuine ownership of their space experiences autonomy. No one is telling them how to manage it. Develops competence. They figure out how to maintain it through trial and error, and develops relatedness. The space becomes part of their identity, part of what they belong to. The Western nagging approach, by contrast, systematically undermines all 3. It eliminates autonomy. Someone is telling the child what to do and when. It prevents competence development. The adult intervenes before the child experiences the consequences of their choices. And it creates negative relatedness. The space becomes associated with conflict and parental displeasure rather than personal investment and pride. The child who's constantly told to clean up their room doesn't just fail to develop ownership. They often develop the opposite, a mild aversion to the space as a fight of conflict. The room becomes the place where they get in trouble, rather than the place that belongs to them. The practical implementation of the Japanese approach requires one thing above everything else: genuine non-interference. This is hard, genuinely hard, because the impulse to tidy the child's space, to suggest a better organizational system, to notice out loud when it's becoming too chaotic, these impulses come from good intentions. They come from caring, but they are, in the specific context of building ownership identity, the wrong expressions of that care. The instruction for parents who want to try this approach is deliberately simple and deliberately uncomfortable. Designate the space, hand it over completely, then stay out of it, physically and awkward, for a minimum of 3 weeks. Don't comment when it's messy. Don't comment when it's clean. Don't offer organizational suggestions. Don't tidy, even when it seems to be reaching a point of genuine dysfunction. The dysfunction is, in a specific sense, necessary. It's the condition in which the child must experience the personal cost of disorder and the personal benefit of putting it right. The 3 weeks is not a magic number. It's an approximation of how long it typically takes for the initial novelty of ownership to wear off, for a genuine moment of disorder to create genuine personal inconvenience, and for the child to take their first unasked-for action to address it. That first unasked-for action is the shift, not the action itself. It will be imperfect, incomplete, inconsistent, but the fact that it came from inside rather than in, response to external pressure, that is the seed of ownership identity, and once it's planted, the development that follows is fundamentally different from anything that external enforcement can produce. Japanese parents are not permissive. Japanese culture is not chaos. The spaces that Japanese children eventually develop the capacity to maintain are often more consistently orderly than those of Western trench, who were externally managed for years. The difference is the origin of the order. Order maintained from outside is fragile. It requires ongoing enforcement. Order developed from inside is self-sustaining because it is connected to identity and investment rather than external pressure. The child who owns their space grows into the adult who owns their home, their desk, their workspace, their life. That's what's being built here, not a tidier room, a different relationship with everything that belongs to them. It starts with a shelf, or a drawer, or a corner. Give it to them completely, then step back. The rest will follow.